Warning, this video will contain spoilers up to chapter 1033. You've been warned. Hello, my Nakama Tachi, this is Joy Girl, and I want to talk about the secrets of the Lunarian race and how they may be even more closely connected to the big mysteries of One Piece than we expected. I'd like to share my speculations, and in return, let me know your thoughts and share your speculations by leaving a comment below. If you'd like to hear more One Piece discussions, then make sure to subscribe to the channel and click that notification bell for future videos. Now, One Piece has so many different races. We've got humans, fishmen, skymen, or skypeans. We've got big people, small people, humanoid minks, but personally, none of them has been as interesting for me as the Lunarians. Because based on the very little that we know of this race, Lunarians sound like a pretty big deal when it comes to unlocking all the secrets in the One Piece world. One of the mysteries that we've been waiting to find out about in the Wano arc is about King's race, and after hints that he may be a Lunarian, this was finally confirmed to us in chapter 1033. And all of the bits and pieces of information that we got during this period is really indicative of big reveals which will shed more light on the lore of One Piece. But then, well, what do we actually know? What are the Lunarians? Let's gather all of the information that we have about this special race. Firstly, their name, Lunarians, have the word Luna in it, which is a word which heavily relates to the moon. So it could be assumed that they were probably a race of species that came from space, most likely the moon. And if we piece together some highly suggestive details of Queen saying that they were a tribe known as the Gods in the past, and Marco remembering Whitebeard stories of a race of gods who lived above the red line, then it's pretty safe to assume that they were both talking about Lunarians, a race who in the distant past were referred to as gods and lived above the red line. But now they're a race that's facing extinction, with King, the Beast Pirate's top commanding officer, currently being the only known surviving member of his race. And this is a really intriguing detail because based on what we know and what we've seen from King, it's hard to imagine how they would have been eradicated. Because it seems the reason, or at least part of the reason why Lunarians were considered gods, is because of their extremely adaptable bodies which could survive in any environment. And we've seen this in King, who's extremely durable. This is perhaps the most Zoro has struggled in a 1v1 fight since the time skip, and nothing Zoro does seems to have any effect on King. King seems like he's almost playing games letting Zoro hit him on purpose. And some other intriguing things that we've seen from King's physiology, which is suggested to be the result of his Lunarian blood rather than his Pteranodon devil fruit, is his ability to control fire and his wings in human form, because it's hinted that he may not actually be using those wings to fly. Which, as an aside, I've also thought whether this suggests that his wings are actually artificial and maybe the result of some sort of experimentation. But anyways, whilst all of this raises the question of how such a unique and powerful race became extinct, or at least close to extinction, it does make it somewhat easier to suppose why. Especially given that the place where they used to live above the red line is now where Mara Joie is located, it seems highly possible that the Celestial Dragons are the main reason behind the eradication of King's race. So considering the influence that the Celestial Dragons possess, it's not hard to imagine them of being capable of eradicating an entire race of species. They have the whole world government at their disposal, and the easiest way I can picture this happening is the Celestial Dragons demanded a buster call to the top of the red line with the purpose of overtaking the area so that they could live right in the middle of the Blue Sea. But is that the only reason why they wanted to get rid of the Lunarians, or is there a much bigger reason behind it? Because starting with the time frame, we know that the 19 kings moved to Mara Joie 800 years ago when the world government was also founded. So unless Mara Joie was relocated at some point in history, it seems like the occupation of the Red Line by the Celestial Dragons happened essentially at the same time that the world government was formed. Which doesn't completely rule out the possibility of a buster call being utilized. It's very possible that the eradication of the Lunarians was the very first instance of a buster call. It may even be why the world government is so confident in the buster call's abilities, if it was even able to wipe out the race of gods who are known for their survival abilities. One way this could have all went down is if the kingdoms all got together, banded, and decided to get rid of the threat of the all-powerful species, and so they unleashed the first buster call, and after the Lunarians were wiped out, they found out that the Red Line is indestructible, and that's why they decided to make the Red Line their home. And this may even be what spurred them to form the world government after they eradicated the greatest power known to them. Now, I think one could make an argument that the buster call wouldn't be enough to destroy this extremely strong species, but I think we got a hint that the Lunarians have a weakness. When King almost invites Zoro to attack him, I interpreted that as if King was playing games, as if there are select specific parts of his body which will result in some sort of response, and in the case where Zoro stabbed him, causing his body to explode. Maybe there are some parts of his body which holds the secret to his destruction, and in the case of a Buster Call, which was just complete bombardment, the Lunarians were just hit in the right places. Or maybe it's more detailed than that and there were specific ways in which the Lunarians were targeted. But in all honesty, more so than the how they were eradicated, I'm really interested in the why. And the reason why the Buster Call idea sticks with me is because the first time we were introduced to this ultimate attack of the world government was back in the Water 7 saga, and of course the Buster Call is most closely associated with what happened to Ohara. So in Robin's flashback, we saw that the world government ordered a Buster Call to an island in the West Blue after they discovered that the scholars of Ohara were studying the Poneglyphs and the Void Century, which the world government have classified as a forbidden practice. The greatest thing that Ohara is notable for is their Tree of Knowledge, a 5,000-year-old gigantic tree which also serves as a library that holds the research conducted by the scholars and also contains thousands of historic resources gathered from across the globe spanning thousands of years. But the most intriguing thing that was found inside the Tree of Knowledge was that big model of planets located in the center of the library. Surrounded by books is a model of what looks like a globe of the world with more than a handful of other satellites orbiting around it. And so the popular idea is that this is the One Piece world with multiple moons orbiting around it. And this could actually make sense if we consider the abnormal nature of weather in One Piece. The existence of multiple moons may be resulting in such an unusual phenomenon. But we're not here to discuss One Piece weather, because if you want that, you can check out our Joy News segment. But going back to this discussion, it's fair to say that the model of the planets with multiple orbiting moons that we saw in the Tree of Knowledge is actually something that was made by the archaeologists of Ohara based on their accumulated knowledge about the One Piece world. And so going by this logic, we can then theorize that part of what the Oharans had discovered about the secrets of the world is the existence of multiple moons. And perhaps this knowledge is part of the secrets that the world government is attempting to keep hidden. Because earlier we asked the question of whether the Celestial Dragons would have wiped out the Lunarians for the sole purpose of gaining control over the Red Line, or whether there is a bigger reason behind their actions. And if I'd have to guess, I'll say that it's the latter, and this is also because of an interesting detail that was dropped in chapter 1033. The Lunarians are able to thrive in any natural environment, and this interesting physiology of the Lunarians being able to survive in any habitat and the pair of large black wings that the only surviving member of the tribe possesses paints a pretty clear picture of why they could be considered a big threat to the world's secrets. What if the Lunarians were a group of species that traveled freely and lived on the multiple moons that potentially exist and orbit around the One Piece world? We already know that there once was an ancient civilization on a moon, which we've seen in Enel's cover story, a city called Burka where the technology and architecture was highly advanced even though the moon people had to leave due to a lack of resources. I think King being related to the moon people or being another moon race is very likely. Their ability to survive in any environment suggests that they would be able to survive outer space, and their connection to the moon is quite literally in their name, the Lunarians, which I have a habit of pronouncing as the Lunarians, but I digress. But given their natural unique abilities and what we know of the moon people to be extremely advanced, this could be why the Celestial Dragons considered them a threat to be wiped out. I imagine this to be similar to Attack on Titan and the natural threat that the Marlians pose to the rest of the world. And with all of these pieces to put together and all of the snippets of mysteries that we've yet to resolve, I really do think that the Lunarians are a key part in uncovering all of these secrets. Maybe they're even connected to the God Valley incident, because we've usually associated the term God and God Valley with the Celestial Dragons, but maybe it's actually related to the godly race of Lunarians as well. A way that I could picture this is if the incident concerned the final eradication of the Lunarians, and part of why it's a covered up event is because the world government wants to keep this special race a secret. Although this requires some further working out, because it was suggested that Rox was the bad guy who required stopping in this scenario, but maybe not. I've discussed before that Rox really may not have been evil, and this is just world government propaganda and indoctrination. Or maybe the Lunarians are inextricably linked to the ancient weapons. I do not think that it's a mere coincidence that there is a planetary theme across the names of the ancient weapons, because apart from their connections to Greek mythology and the natural elements, the names also link to names of planets or dwarf planets. There's a distinct theme of a solar system which the Lunarians would fit into as well. What if the ancient weapons were were actually the weapons of the Lunarians, or the Lunarians at least hold some knowledge of it. Maybe that's why they had to be eradicated. Let's suppose that after the Lunarians were dispossessed of their former homeland on top of the Red Line, they weren't completely wiped out and the surviving members relocated to an island, and the reason why that island became known as God Valley was because the race who were once considered gods had to descend from their high spot above the Red Line to a lowly island, hence God Valley. Sort of a sarcastic mockery, if you will. Maybe Rox, who uncovered some of the world's secrets, knew of the Lunarians and went to find out about the ancient weapons, and the combination of this plus the celestial dragons being there for some reason resulted in a situation where Rox and also the remaining members of the Lunarians all had to be wiped out. Maybe King's the only one who survived, and this could have been when King decided to join Kaido in the first place and became so impressed with him after witnessing Kaido's ability at God Valley. Maybe Kaido even saved him. This could be the reason why each of the former Rox pirates have some knowledge or connection to the Lunarians. Big Mom was really the first character who posed the intrigue of King's race for us. We gained more information about the Lunarians through Marco's flashback of Whitebeard, and of course Kaido now has the only known surviving Lunarian as his top commander. We've also recently discovered the existence of a sun god who may or may not have been Joy Boy himself, and given the numerous times the moon has been presented to be an extremely significant element in One Piece, it really seems like there is some sort of planetary theme and connection which will become relevant. Which then also raises questions as to whether the Lunarians were actually allied to the Great Kingdom, which also has a moon theme, and if so, then why King is actually a part of the antagonist crew now, and maybe this will actually result in the uncovering of a really dark backstory for King who betrayed his own people, or something really tragic where he's been extremely misled. But in any case, I cannot help but think that the Lunarians are really intertwined with essentially all of these remaining mysteries. But now that you've heard my thoughts, let me know yours by leaving a comment below. Don't forget to like and share the video, and please do subscribe for more One Piece discussions. You can also join our Joyfleet Discord server for more One Piece fun, and even become a Patreon member if you'd like special roles and powers within that server. Thank you to our patrons who help support the channel. This is Joy Girl, and I'll see you again soon.